So we're going to start with the story of the Junior School Initiative. So this started probably about 3 years ago, just before COVID hit. As many of you know, a lot of schools started to see other products become dominant within the junior school, and it took the focus away from the Schoolbox platform. And those products were meant that parents were needing to log into multiple systems, and meant data was being siphoned off into other platforms, and we wanted to stop that from happening. And a lot of our schools were asking us, how do we make sure that we keep everything in one place? So as part of that initiative, we went out and we spoke to all of our schools. In fact, user forums about 4 years ago, we actually had junior school focused sessions where we did problem elicitation. We investigated what the actual issues were, why we were seeing people adopt other platforms, and what we needed to build in order to solve that issue. Of those, we identified three main core issues. The first one being ease of login. So just the simple, how do the young students log in? They weren't remembering passwords. How do we make it easier for them to get access to the system? Second was the simplicity of the interface, making it so there was less buttons, less information dense, more friendly for younger students to use. And thirdly, we wanted a simple way to capture learning moments or evidence, which obviously became our learning moment feature. So those were the three problems that we identified about 4 years ago. And so over the last 3 years, we've been working pretty solidly to release solutions to those problems. The first of which was the QR code feature, which allows those students to log in with just a simple QR code, so they can use a mobile device, use the camera on that device, and log in simply from that QR code. No passwords needed, and we created a print sheet for that feature, so that you could, a classroom teacher could print out a sheet of QR codes, cut it up into lanyards or into stickers on their desks, and deploy those login codes to the entire class. Obviously, with that, we needed to make sure IT was comfortable with that, and so there's restrictions to lock that feature down so that it can only be used in certain year levels, and they've got expiry dates on them, so they do eventually become unusable. One of the ways to simplify our interface was the development of the Junior School Toolkit dashboard component. And this dashboard component was designed to put on a junior school dashboard. And so in our minds, we envisaged that the junior school dashboard for junior students would be stripped right back down to just this widget. And this widget would give quick links just to the few core features that we were designing and targeting for the junior school, so that those junior students weren't overwhelmed with news and calendars and distracted by all of the other things going on the older years dashboards, and they just had a few quick links to do the things that we needed them to do. And so that was where the toolkit came from. With that toolkit, we also have the ability to capture those, all of those learning moments, and I might come back to that in just a minute. But importantly, and probably the big development for the 23.0 release, and that's what's up here, is this install app concept. So some of you may have heard that iOS has recently changed their policy on web apps to allow web apps to send notifications. This has meant we've now invested in developing Schoolbox to be a PWA, Progressive Web App. A Progressive Web App is installable on your device, like a normal application. So you can now, as part of 23.0, install Schoolbox onto iOS, onto Android, but also onto Mac and Windows devices as well. And so that installable application becomes a quick launch button. And the idea with that is that ultimately in the next release we'll also allow push notifications to be pushed through that app as well. So that's an exciting new development, and should also help with that streamlining of how do junior schools interact with that experience. Make it really easy, make it really simple, so that you can install the Schoolbox as an app on those mobile devices that the kids are using in the classroom, perhaps the iPad tablets, and then it will launch into it. It also works nicely with the QR codes, so the QR codes will launch into the app and things like that as well. So all of that should work for you nicely. So that's how we're starting that process of simplifying the experience in the junior school. But there's more to it than just simplifying, I guess, the experience. It's also about capturing evidence of learning. And this was a key thing that I sort of mentioned. We wanted to create the ability for students to easily capture their learning in a variety of different ways. We already had assessments due work, but obviously the feedback that came back was that was too complicated in the junior school context. It wasn't necessary for that sort of process. The assessment wasn't that critical. What was more important was just that we were capturing that evidence that the students had completed an activity. So we built the capturing tools, so we added the ability to capture video, photos, audio, screen capture. So there's a vast array of different tools that we developed in order to capture that learning. And students can easily do that on any device, whether it be an iOS device or Android or laptop. So device agnostic, that allows you to capture any type of learning. In addition to that, with 23.0, we've also added the ability to capture learning on goals. And one of the other features that we built as part of the Junior School Initiative was badges. Now, badges aren't necessarily tied specifically to junior schools, but they are very useful for assessment in the junior schools because they're a nice way for the teacher to recognise and observe the student's achievement. So badges become a really nice way in the junior school to assess students. But of course, when you're assessing students, you want to have viewed and seen the evidence of what they've done to achieve that result. And so by adding evidence capture into goals, we start to enable students to capture their learning and present that to the teacher through an alternative submission mechanism to due work. So this gives you a simpler, more accessible junior school style assessment workflow. Still tied to an achievement standard, but much simpler for the students to use. Of course, once the teacher views that evidence, they can award the badge, but it's all about that student capturing that evidence as they go. You'll also note up in the bottom right corner, there's a little bit of a snapshot of the editor. I hope by now a few of you have watched the video on the new editor. That new editor has, although it's got a much simpler toolbar there, once again useful for the junior school because that was some of the feedback that we got. We wanted to simplify that interface and make it simpler for younger kids to use. But it's actually more powerful. You can drag and drop files into that and it will automatically put a little mime icon and file link in there. So it's become a more powerful tool while becoming simpler at the same time. So we hope that little editor there will give students the ability to do a whole range of different capturing of evidence, and whether it be video, whether it pictures, they can drag and drop, they can take photos from their camera, all of those will be possible through that little editor there. It's amazing what we can do these days. Alright, so before I move on to the whole student initiative, just to sum up the junior school initiative. So the idea with the junior school was we wanted to simplify the experience. We wanted to make it easier for those students to capture their evidence, share it with the teachers, and teachers to mark and assess it. And I hope through you can see now that there's been a whole range of different features released from, I guess, basically back to version 21.0. We've consistently built and released a whole range of features that have moved us towards that journey. And I hope that we now start to see more schools adopt these tools and start to use them within the junior school.